What up guys, Miguel here from Yugatech, and today we are pitting the OPPO Reno11 F 5G against the realme 12 Plus 5G. But as always, there's more than meets the eye when it comes to specs on paper. The phones mirror each other's specs a lot, from chipset to battery, so it should be challenging to find big differences. But after reviewing both devices, we've found some areas where each phone shines in their own right. As hot releases from their respective brands, the question is, which phone should you put your money's worth in? With everything done and more to be said, let's hop straight into the video to take a closer look. Being nitpicky towards phone displays feel critical nowadays for most people. After all, it's responsible for your content viewing experience, productivity for others, and for some gaming on the side. More importantly, it's the part of the phone you'll be looking at 99% of the time. Moving on, the two new phones have plenty of similarities in this area. Both have a 6.7-inch display, a refresh rate of 120Hz, 394 pixels per inch, and resolutions of 2400 by 1080. However, the OPPO Reno11 F has an OLED display with 1100 nits of peak brightness. As for the Realme 12 Plus, the device sports an AMOLED display with 2000 nits of peak brightness. With these considered, the Realme 12 Plus should have an advantage on paper. After all, an AMOLED display is slated to be more power efficient. Additionally, it also has a higher peak brightness to emphasize color vibrant and also allows for better usability under direct sunlight. Meanwhile, the OPPO Reno11 F has an OLED screen worth considering if end users still prefer deep blacks and a high contrast ratio compared to IPS displays. Pitting these two against each other is pretty tough as both are honestly quite nice display-wise. We'd call this a draw, but leaning more towards the display of the Reno11 F. While there is a more obvious difference in chipset, the same can't be said about performance figures. Why? Because the OPPO Reno11 F and the Realme 12 Plus both run on the same MediaTek Dimensity 7050 5G chipset. The Dimensity 7050 is an octa-core chipset with 6 nanometers of processing technology. It consists of 2 Cortex A78 cores running at 2.6 GHz and 6 cores of the Cortex A55 running at 2 GHz. Released just last year, this chipset comes with a Mali G68 MP4 GPU. Upon review, this processor peaked at a score of 603,307 points in Antutu benchmarks for the Realme 12 Plus, and as for the Reno11 F, it was able to get a close score of 594,627. For those interested, you can check out the benchmarks of both devices on screen here. But judging by the numbers, the Realme 12 Plus seems to squeeze out more performance by a small margin. Now, on to memory and storage, and for reference, we're basing this comparison from the review models we had in studio. The OPPO Reno11 F 5G had 8GB of RAM, while the Realme 12 Plus 5G had 12GB of RAM available. As for storage, both devices have 256GB of internal storage available for end users. Additionally, both phones are also supported by UFS 3.1 and have hybrid microSD card slots for expandable storage. The Realme 12 Plus has the edge with more base RAM in comparison with the Reno11 F. But keep in mind, both devices have RAM extension capabilities via software integration. Either way, both are very capable of effectively storing software, apps, and files in general. No major issues here. We're going to have to call this a tie for both smartphones, even with all this considered, as they're pretty much neck and neck in terms of specs. But if we really had to have a winner in this segment, then I guess you'd kinda give it to the one with the better benchmark scores, right? Talking about the cameras between these two devices should be interesting to say the least. After all, a good camera can be a deciding factor between someone copying or dropping a smartphone. As new releases, I'd say this area deserves some attention from our viewers. Oh, and by the way, both devices have a triple rear camera setup. To start, the OPPO Reno11 F sports a 64-megapixel main camera with an aperture of f1.7, an 8-megapixel ultrawide with an aperture of f2.2, and a 2-megapixel macro lens with an aperture of f2.2 as well. You also get a 32-megapixel selfie camera with an aperture of f2.4. As for the Realme 12 Plus, it features a 50-megapixel main camera with an aperture of f1.88, an 8-megapixel ultrawide with an aperture of f2.2, and a 2-megapixel macro lens with an aperture of f2.2 as well. And for selfies, the Realme 12 Plus features a 16-megapixel front-facing camera with an aperture of f2.45. A couple of things. First, both phones have a 112-degree field of view with their ultra-wide lenses. Next, both are marketed with specialities in producing quality portrait shots. The Reno11 F has an aperture slider to add a bokeh effect to the images. It also corrects harsh, imperfect edges around the subject's face in post-processing. As for the Realme 12 Plus, portrait shots are also captured effectively. It gives end users the option to blur a background in portrait mode. But even with these considered, our preferences lean towards the OPPO Reno11 F 5G. The thing is, the Reno11 F processes images rather quickly when compared to the Realme 12 Plus. We thought it was only in night mode when we first used them, but apparently not. The Realme 12 Plus takes about 2 seconds to finish processing a captured photo, albeit it does come out fine. As for the Reno11 F, it feels more seamless to be able to spam that trigger button when taking photos. Moving on to connectivity and features, where we'll try to pick both phones apart, considering they use the same chipset. Both phones have dual nano SIM card slots, have 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, NFC, and charge via USB Type-C. They also feature the usual GPS standards like GNS, BDS, Galileo, and QZSS, and both devices also have in-display fingerprint sensors of the optical variety. However, the OPPO Reno11 F 5G has a higher rating for dust and water resistance at IP65. In comparison, there's an IP54 rating for the Realme 12 Plus. But as somewhat of a consolation feature, the Realme 12 Plus supports a 3.5mm headphone jack. Both run on Android 14 skinned with their own UIs. The OPPO Reno11S runs on ColorOS 14, while the Realme 12 Plus runs on Realme UI 5.0. Considering what these phones offer in terms of features, we're going to go with the OPPO Reno11 F yet again. Frankly, even if I exclude the higher IP rating, OPPO wins solely because of ColorOS. The aquamorphic design feature just makes the user interface and navigating through the phone feel so much smoother. There are also certain things we've grown a preference for, like OPPO's Link Boost feature that enhances signal transmission and reception. They also have this O Relax app that helped the writer of this comparison focus or rest with ambient sounds. Don't get us wrong, Realme's UI isn't bad by any means, but nothing really stuck out with Realme UI compared to ColorOS, apart from the loads of bloatware when you boot the phone for the first time. Speaking of bloatware, the Reno11 F also has a ton of bloatware, but yeah, it was quite a pleasant surprise to be able to use some of them personally. The smartphones are both powered with 5000 mAh batteries featuring 67-watt SuperVOOC charging, and to add to that, both phones take roughly about an hour to charge to full power from zero. So there shouldn't be any more to say, right? Well, based on our reviews, the OPPO Reno11 F has a better overall battery life. In PCMark's Work 3.0 battery test, the Reno11 F lasted an impressive 19 hours and 34 minutes, while the Realme 12 Plus lasted 16 hours and 22 minutes. Additionally, the Reno11 F has two notable features that help itself take care of battery lifespan. First up, it features a smart charging setting. This adjusts charging patterns based on end user habits to slow down battery aging. Plus, it also has a stop charging at 80% option, which helps extend its lifespan a bit more. On to what people are here for. The prices. These two smartphones are competitively priced under the 20,000 peso range. The OPPO Reno11 F 5G is priced at 18,999 pesos, coming with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of internal storage. Three colors are available: palm green, ocean blue, and coral purple. As for the Realme 12 Plus 5G, it's priced at 17,999 pesos for a variant with 8GB of RAM with 256GB of available storage. A variant is also available with 12GB of RAM with 256GB of storage available at 19,999 pesos. The Realme 12 Plus 5G is available in the Pioneer Green and Navigator Beige colorways. Wrapping this up, on paper, the Realme 12 Plus 5G should rival the OPPO Reno11 F 5G in all categories. However, the latter shows more promise when considering user experience and reaching end-user needs. Even so, the Realme 12 Plus 5G still poses quite a challenge in an ongoing competitive market to start off the year. Still fresh from their launch, feel free to watch our review on the Realme 12 Plus on our YouTube channel, and you can find that right here. As for the OPPO Reno11 F 5G, we also suggest that people look into it. Our review on the device was also recently published, which again, you can check out here. If you're looking for a phone with a smooth display, a decent camera setup, and tons of neat features, the Reno11 F is worth adding to your list. Now, if you found this video comparison informative or interesting, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of our future uploads. Visit yugatech.com and follow us on our socials. That is Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok for the latest tech news and reviews. Once again, this has been Miguel, and I will see you in the next one.